Welcome to the Leader's Way podcast. So thankful you can join us. And we're recording this week fresh off lots of gun violence around our country. And so our hearts are heavy. And I think we're all rightly wondering what the next step entails. How do we address, how do we heal both the kind of the fire of indignation that's within us? How do we leverage that indignation to make the wisest choices to take healing action in the world? And I think we might wonder aloud or silently to ourselves around the role of poetry. Is poetry frivolous? Do words matter? I'm thinking especially of how it's become quite common to say, thoughts and prayers don't matter or are not enough. And I wonder if words and poetry fall into this category too. And today's conversation is an important one with the incredible poet Spencer Reece. We can think of today's conversation as a kind of extended meditation on the role of poetry and what difference words make in our lives. And I want to make the bold argument, of course, that they matter a whole lot. And that words and poetry, that thoughts and prayers at their best remind us of who we are. They can be like a kind of mirror for us to see ourselves with the kind of fullness of humanity, fullness of dignity, and with the full resourcing of our spiritual nature. That is to say that we are not, in the materialist sense, just this bag of bones, but we are also temples of spirit, and that we can actually also access an infinite reservoir of courage and grace and tenderness and compassion. And that words and poetry in particular play a really important role in calling us to our higher selves, our truest selves, our deepest selves, our kindest selves. I'm often fond of saying that we as human beings are what happens when love gets a body. And that is a kind of sacred memory that we all need right now. So I'm profoundly moved by the events of the week. I'm heartbroken, and I want to feel my heart also stretched open to learn what there is to be learned. I also feel my heart stretched open to learn what there is to learn in a moment such as this, to understand what our response is as leaders, as healers. So we have a wonderful guide with us to illumine one very important path toward healing, toward remembering, and that's Father Spencer Reece, the acclaimed poet, author of The Clerk's Tale, selected by Louise Gluck for the Bakeless Prize. He's been recognized with an award from the Library of Congress. His honors include fellowships from the Guggenheim Foundation, the National Endowment for the Arts. He's received grants from the Fulbright Foundation, the Minnesota State Arts Council. He's received a Witter-Binner Fellowship from the Library of Congress, the Amy Lowell Poetry Traveling Scholarship, a Whiting Writers Award. The list goes on and on. Most recently, he's won the John Updike Award from the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and he's been featured many times in the New Yorker magazine. And he's a Berkeley Divinity School at Yale alum. He's here visiting campus, speaking with students, and he dropped by the Leader's Way podcast to talk about his poetry, his writing, his recovery, his spiritual life, and the role of poetry to help us remember who we are and to heal the world. So he's an Episcopal priest and poet and a fellow companion on this journey through life. Enjoy this conversation. Welcome to the Leader's Way podcast, a show for people who are not ready to give up on the world. We convene sacred conversations with luminaries, scholars, and spiritual leaders who explore the creative vision needed to lead change in our aching world. I'm Dr. Brandon Nappi, lecturer at Yale Divinity School and executive director of the Office of Transforming Leaders at Berkeley Divinity School at Yale. I'm so glad you're here. Father Spencer Reece, welcome to the Leader's Way podcast.
Thank you for having me. It's an honor and a privilege, and I love what you're doing.
And you're a Berkeley Divinity School at Yale graduate, so welcome back.
Thank you.
How is it to be back?
It's wonderful, and I'm energized by meeting all the students. A young seminarian, Linda, gave a wonderful sermon last night, and I felt inspired and encouraged and full of the Holy Spirit.
Could we hear a little bit of your story? You're a priest, you're a poet, you've won many awards. How did all this happen? I presume priest poets aren't hatched from the stork and dropped through a chimney. Can you tell us a bit of your story?
Brandon, thank you for asking me that question. I had amazing parents, and they loved me, and they were somewhat eccentric, and they read books constantly, and in order for me to find them as a child, there would be these teetering stacks of books, and sometimes I couldn't find them. They were just reading constantly. They were reading night and day when my dad wasn't working. My dad was a doctor. So there was a great encouragement of creativity with me. I was their firstborn child. So there was that. It wasn't a very religious household by any stretch of the imagination. The New York Times opened over my parents what were the steeples to which they worshiped on Sunday. But they were curious people. They loved to travel. They loved me. It was also a home that was deeply affected by the illness of alcoholism. And there was, at the same time, kind of a sorrow and a sadness. And all that came to bear on me in some way. And I went to an Episcopal prep school in Minneapolis for 13 years called BRAC, and I was there from kindergarten until 12th grade. And when I was a senior, it was kind of a small rinky-dink school at the time. It's since become like an alpha school, but it was not like that at the time. I took a AP English class. I think they still offer AP English. And all the lights went on in the room as I started reading all these things that were in the Norton Anthology, and I had a great teacher.
The Norton Anthology. I hadn't thought of that in a long time. I sure do. Oh, I got to go dig mine up.
And this teacher named Ann Young believed in me. And I also I had to work very hard in high school. I wanted to get into a good college. It was competitive. I was really, really studying, staying up late, the flashcards, and none of it was easy for me. And also, to mention my parents again, they didn't really pressure me. I just did it, I don't know, this is just what I wanted. And, but when I got to the AP English class, if I remember correctly, it just felt like I didn't have to do all that work. It just came to me, and I metabolized the stuff, and especially the poetry. I just came alive in that class, and I couldn't stop reading poetry. And then went on to college, and I just kept reading, and then wanting to read it so much that I was writing it. And it seemed a strange thing to be that obsessed with, but there you have it. And it was a long, long haul before I was published or recognized or won any kind of awards. I was 41 at the time that happened, and I had submitted my first book of poetry 300 times to national book competitions over a 15-year period.
Wow.
and was really ready to give up in the moment when I won. So I don't know where it comes from, the passion and love for poetry and the crazy idea to think that it's meaningful and important. But you are asking me about how does poetry relate in these crazy times before we got on the air with the shootings you mentioned. And that shooting that took place in Minneapolis is blocks away from where I grew up.
Oh my gosh.
And I mean, I don't understand why this is happening. And it's heartbreaking. Poetry is so important because so many things are ephemeral. So many things don't last. Even, us or cars or so many things, or we fade away from one generation to the next. I was mentioning my classmate, today's 9/11, and at the service today they asked me to speak there, and my classmate Frank Doyle died in Tower 1. And I think, well, gosh, if I didn't tell you that or I didn't mention his name, who would even know he was there? And poetry, maybe I'm crazy, but I believe it has this tremendous power to hold the culture and to remember people that might be forgotten. There's a wonderful poem from the Theresian concentration camp. The Theresian concentration camp in World War II gathered all the Jewish children into this medieval walled-in fortress. There were 15,000 children that went into Theresienstadt, and after the war was over, 100 of those children returned. 14,900 children were killed. But while they were there was an English teacher, like my English teacher at Breck School in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she believed in those kids, and she loved those kids, and she encouraged them to write poems. And she was on the last train to Auschwitz, and she took all of those poems and she put them in a trunk, and they were discovered after the war. They were put together in a book called I Never Saw Another Butterfly.
Oh, of course.
And those poems, here, I'll give you a little bit of one, which
please.
I wasn't planning to do, which is coming out of my head, so hopefully I'll get this right. This poem written by a 9-year-old child. The child died. So all we have, the only sound that we have of this person on this planet, that they lived, that they existed, is this poem. Homesick. I've lived in the ghetto for more than a year, in Theresian, in the Black Town now, and when I remember my old home so dear, I can love it more than I did somehow. Ah, home, home. Why did they tear me away? Here the weak die easy as a feather, and when they die forever. I'd like to go back home again. It makes me think of sweet spring flowers. Before, when I used to live at home, it never seemed so dear or fair. I remember now those golden days. But maybe I'll be going home soon again. People walk along the street. You see on each you meet that there's a ghetto here, a place of evil and of fear. There's little to want and little to eat, where bit by bit it's horror to live. But no one must give up. The world turns and times change. We all hope the time will come when we'll go home again. Now I know how dear it is, and often I remember it. So, Brandon, if we didn't have that poem that woman saved and put in a trunk, we'd never know that person was alive. And that's the power of poetry.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so close to God, because It doesn't need any money for me to share that with you. It's the one art that repels money like nobody's business. I mean, people don't think about it half the time, but it's kind of like turning into church. Like it's so important. It's right in front of you, and everybody just walks by it. But it's what's gonna hold us together.
Oh my gosh, I believe that. Oh, thank you for that. I mean, it's instantly church the moment you begin reading a poem, especially out loud. Like we touch something so sacred that's, of course, is always there, right? It's not like we manufacture the sacredness the moment we go to church or the moment we start reading a poem, but there's something about attending to the holy, paying attention, or we remember. We remember that the holy is here. We remember who we are in a moment. Is that what's happening in the process of writing and reading poetry? Reflect a little bit about the role of poetry in our world, because I could imagine, this is not my belief, but I could imagine someone saying, well, Father Spencer, I mean, this is quite frivolous. People have died. And has this made any bit of difference, this poetry?
Well, they have. That poem I recited to you is my response, and I've been to Theresienstadt. I grew up in a family of people that were survivors of the Holocaust. It was an unusual childhood in many ways. I was describing that in the beginning, but another way that it was unusual is that my godfather was in the Polish underground. My godmother was with Anne Frank and Bergen-Belsen. And these were the people that I grew up with. They were like, we would be around this kitchen table, and those were the voices that I heard that informed what was important. And art and culture were very important to those people who had lost everything. I believe art will save us. I feel it saves me. It saves me. Creativity, and everybody's got creativity in them from, Adam and Eve. Creativity is something humans have inside of them that they can manifest, and it gives life meaning, and it's fun. And like this guy, Thomas Dambo from just reading Copenhagen, Denmark, who's making giant trolls all over the country. I just gave a sermon on him, about making these trolls and how they create community. People stumble into the forest and they don't know where they're going, and they meet each other. And that's kind of like what church should be.
I think we need a field trip to see
they
the
just
trolls.
put one up in my neighborhood.
We're going to write a grant for
Wickford,
that.
Rhode Island. They just put one up there. So it's huge. It's true. It's a troll number 161.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
What's coming up in this conversation also came up in our beautiful conversation with Padre Kotuma, and that is the importance of having some poetry memorized that you can call upon like a faithful friend, like what you just did. He did the same,
Oh, did he?
He did.
I love Padraig, by the way. He's an old friend of mine, and he's coming to visit me in Wickford, Rhode Island. I memorize poems from early on. They do stay with me, and they provide solace. And I mean, why'd I do that? I don't know.
I mean, I can remember rolling my eyes and in a very grumpy way memorizing poetry, and 40 years later, 30 years later, still with me. And gosh, that English teacher was right. And I wish I had more at my disposal. And so I'm so thankful for that practice. So an invitation to listeners to go find a favorite poem and memorize it. And it becomes not just a friend, but at least in my experience, it's become a kind of mirror, sort of showing me, reminding me who I am when I lose myself. Has that been your experience in some way?
It's centering, and I just shared it with you now, and that's gratifying because I love that poem, and I love that story, and I love that place, and I mean, that's God's will, is to share. So I went to school here, and it was not easy, and I was here for 3 years, and I was in my 40s, and I'd been in retail for 12 years, and, I took the first semester, I thought I was going to die.
From retail to Yale, right?
Yeah, retail to Yale.
That's your autobiography. Yeah.
Really good, really good. Yeah. So that first semester, was just waiting for the phone to ring with a customer complaint, or couldn't there something I could fold? Like I couldn't concentrate. And
Can we tell people where you worked in retail?
Yeah, at Brooks Brothers.
At Brooks Brothers, yeah.
It was a great company to work for. It taught me a lot. Anyway, in my time here, somewhere along the line, I can't remember if it's Kant or if it's Kierkegaard, but some smart listener can write in and tell you who it was. One of them, maybe it's Kant, had this pyramid scheme of the arts, and at the top would be the one that's closest to God.
Oh.
And the pyramid was done according to the materials that were needed. You know, like architecture, you need like cement, you need architects, you need people, construction workers, right? And then like maybe painting, like you need all the elements of painting, like you need a studio and you need canvases and then like
it sounds very Neoplatonic. Like the more stuff you need, the lower you are.
So a play you need actors.
Okay.
And at the top of the scheme is poetry, because you don't need anything. I mean, you just need me sitting here in the studio telling you about this 9-year-old child, and that's the art, that's the poem, and I just think it's very important.
So you're a poet, you're also a priest.
Yeah, that came later.
Later. Can you share how that began to bubble up in your life? Especially since you didn't grow up in a terribly religious home.
I did not.
Just described.
I did not. I'd say poetry saved my life. What also happened to me is I got sober in a 12-step program. When I was 23, I was at Wesleyan down in Middletown, Connecticut, where I graduated from. When I graduated, my cousin, John, who was my same age, who was living in St. Augustine, Florida, who was drinking the way I was we would drink the same or similar. He was murdered in a bar fight. He was killed.
Goodness.
John was killed in a very grotesque manner. And so this event, when I was graduating from Wesleyan, so hungover, feeling so much shame, remorse, embarrassment, that I had lost a lot of opportunities, and it was connected to my drinking. A year later sobered me up, and I wandered into meetings, and I've been there ever since. It's 40 years later. So I began to turn my eyes to the heavens and wonder what the meaning of everything was, and fell in love with a poet when I was living in England named George Herbert from the 17th century. And so I just consumed everything that he read and wrote, and I wanted to be him. I wanted to be George Herbert. And then the door really opened up for me to come to Yale because my book of poetry was selected after these 300 rejections by Louise Glick, who taught here at Yale for many years.
Oh, right.
And she picked my book out of 1,000 books. I was 41 years old. And I just wrote a piece about her for the Paris Review, and I still miss her. She's been gone 2 years, but she was like a fairy godmother in a way. Maybe she would blanch at that description, but it opened that book of poetry. I wrote that book of poetry. I didn't think it was going to open the door to my life changing, but that's what it did. Then I came to Yale about 5 years later, and here I am.
I wonder if you'd read us a poem. Have you brought one with you today?
Oh, so I came to, they invited me to come here this year because of this award that I won through the American Academy of Arts and Letters, and with that came an invitation from my publisher in New York, Ferris, Strauss and Giroux, Jonathan Galassi, who was the editor for Louise also, to put together collected poems. So this is really exciting and unexpected. And I was getting before this, I was getting kind of down and depressed and thinking like, I don't know, nobody, it's easy to feel like that as a poet because, so people aren't reading poetry in general. But yeah, I mean, I've had like a little resurgence. I was just in the New Yorker again after 15 years,
Oh my
and
gosh.
and then this
Congratulations.
prize. And I don't think I've been in the New Yorker for 15 years also because I've been working hard as a priest in Honduras and Spain and then New York City. But I've kind of gotten back in touch with the being published and being in front of people again in that way. And it's kind of nice. So I'm putting together new poems that will be added to a collected poem. So it'll have the first 3 books, and then it'll have new poems. And I will read a really short one for you right now,
Great.
which comes out of the idea for it came when I was here, and it's called Bartimaeus. And Bartimaeus in the Bible is interesting to me because he's sort of the star of his own miracle. You know, Jesus is sort of like off to the side, and it's like he's an unusual miracle in that way. And William Blake at the, I don't know where we are because we're underground, but the British Art Museum is somewhere here. And in the British Art Museum is the William Blake etching of Bartimaeus.
Oh, goodness.
It was one of the few religious subjects that he fixated upon. And so all that was in my head as I wrote this poem, and I was here. It's in the voice of Bartimaeus. Bartimaeus. I go to Jerusalem, drag my cross past the topless go-go club, my armpits sharp as dead geraniums. Dirty from my ditch, I am older now, still no bunions. New Haven coos just a little farther. From my hotel room, October sneezes on the British Museum. I am an old bachelor pushing my miracle in and out of the ivy. Dear Holy Spirit, in the Umber lobby, Michael Cunningham broods with a student to find some truth. The apple, the orange, on the entryway table, a Dutch still life. Louise, you've gone on ahead to a place I cannot see. That's turning to Louise Glick, who was my friend and real support, and she's gone now. She's not here, and she was just as crazy about poetry as I was.
Yeah.
So
Can you talk about her a little more? You
Sure.
light up when
Sure.
you mention her name.
I loved her. I love her now. I'm like, maybe she's here with us right now. She was so smart. It was almost like we had like a love affair. I don't think, no, she'd like that either, but it was like a mental love affair. We were quite close. I knew her for 20 years. In the first 10 years, it was, I'd say, particularly in the beginning, intense because she was like a midwife and helping me because I was not in the literary world. I was not in the academic world. I was in a mall, and this was unusual. And I won a Guggenheim. I won stuff happened, I know, probably because of her and her support. And then, it was 10, 11 years before a second book, but I was showing her stuff for that second book, and she was quite instructive. She had a brilliant mind, and she was a gifted editor with poetry. I loved what she did with the art, and she kind of got really creative, and her career skyrocketed right about this age now in different ways than me. But I mean, her whole renaissance, or like the best years of her writing, I think were between 60 and 80. She died at 80. So she won the Nobel. That was super exciting in the pandemic. And I called her, and she was lingering on the phone. I was like, Louise, you can't talk to me now. There's like millions. I just wanted to tell you I'm so proud of you. And I was. And the last conversation I had with her was in September And I was in my office in Rhode Island, and yeah, I told her I loved her, and she said she loved me too, and yeah.
It is the role of a teacher, of a friend, to see things in us that we perhaps don't see in ourselves.
Yeah, it's my turn to do it with other people now.
Yeah. And if you're blessed enough to be in that position where you can see the goodness in others or see the gifts in others that they're not seeing in themselves, it's such a grace, isn't it? To be at the point in life where maybe as an elder, I've stepped into this role myself, and I love this part of life, to be able to support and affirm and cultivate in others.
It's nice. It's very peaceful kind of feeling, and just expanding. And I mean, so many people supported me and believed in me and listened to me go on. And that kind of love, you look back and you're like, wow.
Yeah, what a grace. Can we talk about T.S. Eliot?
Sure. What do you want to
I know that
talk
T.S.
about?
Eliot was influential for you, and T.S. Eliot has so shaped my life. I just happened to stumble into a class when I was an undergraduate. This wonderful professor, Lawrence Cunningham, he just passed away, who was a Merton scholar, a Gerard Manley Hopkins scholar.
All my peeps.
And so we read Herbert and Gerard Manley Hopkins and T.S. Eliot and Merton. And of course, there's just a beautiful through line through all these souls. How did you bump into T.S. Eliot, and what was the import for you?
Well, jumping back to Louise, I remember we talked about Eliot a lot, and she said his voice, it's so personal, it's so intimate, isn't it? And that I remember her saying that. I just love the sound of it. And I think like in college, The Wasteland was overwhelming to me because I thought I'm not going to understand all these references. But then as I got older, it's meant more to me, and the Four Quartets is just one of my favorite things ever. I could just read it. We could just read it now instead of have this interview. That'd be good use of our time.
It's funny you say that, Father Spencer, because when I was a student here at Yale Divinity School, the Catholic student group was given Ash Wednesday to prepare the service in Marquand Chapel. And no one had signed up to preach. And it came to our attention that we didn't have a preacher for Ash Wednesday the day before the service. And all of us students, we were too intimidated and terrified to preach on Ash Wednesday with no preparation. And so 5 of us got up and took turns reading Ash Wednesday.
Wonderful.
And you could do a lot worse than that.
Yeah.
So I'll never forget that.
Nice.
Yeah.
I wish I could have been there.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. A beautiful memory for us. Your poem, The Clerk's Tale, was turned into a short film.
It was. I've had my brush with Hollywood.
Tell us about that process. And for those who might not know the poem, maybe you share a little bit about the nature of that and how that unfolded.
That poem ran in the New Yorker in 2003. It was a narrative poem about life in retail. And the title was taken from Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. Right. And the tale of the clerk or the clerk in the Canterbury Tales was of a marriage, of a vow of obedience. And the world of retail was a world of obedience in many ways. And I worked very closely with this man who in the poem, has died, named Ralph, who I refer to as the old homosexual. And as a gay person that didn't want to be gay, which was not unusual for somebody who's 62 from Minnesota in the 1970s, I was homophobic. And my dad and I would go to Brooks Brothers, and I said to myself, with all my pimples and my button-down shirt, I was like, oh, please, God, anything, but I just don't want to be this, the guy that worked there.
Yeah.
And God has such a sense of humor because I ended up working with him. And he became my friend. He was a wonderful guy, and he received some notoriety and celebrity because of that poem. Maybe that's the thing that makes me the most happy when I think back on it. And because many people in retail are just not seen. They're not. I'm very drawn to what people don't see, I guess, or I perceive as them not seeing. And certainly retail workers are, or they weren't, that he was not seen. And I thought, well, he's, like Arthur Miller says in Death of a Salesman, attention must be paid. Yeah.
So I've told this story on the Leaders Way podcast, but I think you'd appreciate, and maybe folks don't remember. So a very influential English and drama teacher of mine in high school was at our wedding. Mr. Hoffman was dying. He was dying and performed the role of Willie Loman. Of course, Arthur Miller lived locally here in Connecticut. And so I was told that there was a chance
oh my gosh,
that he would be in this little small community theater to watch the show. And so I watched my beloved mentor perform this role. And as that line was sounded in the theater, attention must be paid, I turned around and Arthur Miller was sitting behind me. And I watched him watch his play being performed. It was a stunning moment in my life. I'll never forget.
Yeah. How beautiful is that? He's a great writer. Well, he's passed on now, but oh my God, I love Arthur Miller. Love.
But take us. Sorry, I interrupted with my story. Take us to the Hollywood transition. Right?
Hollywood
it's not everyone who gets this experience in life.
So yeah, James Franco, who then went on to be canceled. Was before cancellation was contacted me. He was also in touch with Louise at the time too, and he had this idea that he wanted to turn poems into cinema, and he did these great little short films. The thing that he did with my film I thought was fantastic. I thought it was great. So I met him a couple of times, and he came to Yale. He was at the Berkeley Center, and it was most entertaining to see those, timid, greasy, theological students talking about theology, just like turn and get really, really excited. And he was in my patristics class taking notes. So
we are
handsome.
A bit greasy from time to time.
So handsome, such a good-looking guy. That was kind of peculiar and kind of strange and interesting. And I don't know if I've ever been with somebody that was famous like that. And so it didn't make me want to be that. He did a great job with the poem, turning it into a film, and the actor was a famous actor who was in it, a British actor. He was really great. Charles Dance, I think. And then John Kelly was a performance artist who did the other role, who I later met. So, yeah, that happened to me.
I wonder if you could take us sort of into this private creative space for folks who might really enjoy your poetry and wonder, what's the process like? How do you go from a word in your mind to the page to a finished poem? Are there lots of revisions?
There's a lot of revisions for me. I'm very slow, and I don't really know how it happens. But I think because it took me so long to get to my first book, I know that it's going to take time. Some things come really quickly. Like I visited the Henry Nouwen Chapel. Henry Nouwen, I just love Henry Nouwen. Love Henry Nouwen. And I knew that chapel is kind of hard to find in the library. You can't find it. Nobody knows where it is. And that space, I've always wanted to write about it. So sometimes I don't know if I ever will, but there's something about that space, and wanting to talk about him or think about him that might spur something on. This Bartimaeus poem that I read started with, it was a sermon topic that I delivered here at Marquand, and then I researched about the Blake thing, and that was interesting. And sometimes it's a word, it's a sound, and it just won't let go. And it's kind of going on all the time in my head.
I think I can speak on behalf of many of our Yale Divinity School and Berkeley graduates to say it would be a blessing to have a poem that helped us celebrate that space, the Now in Chapel, for those who know it, who I know for me, that place was like a lifeline for me. And it always felt a bit like a womb. And so I would go there when I needed further gestation, or I needed grounding, I needed holy darkness. It's such a sacred place. I think without it, I might not have made it through YDS and my time here at Yale. So that's my way of saying, yes, please, write us a poem.
I'll try.
For those of us who maybe feel a kind of call to the spoken word, the written word, prose, poetry, what kind of encouragement? I mean, you've already sort of named from your own autobiography, it took a while. I presume patience might be part of your encouragement to us. But, it seems for many of us who are here at Divinity School, who have a kind of spiritual hunger within us and want to write and express this, there's often a kind of reticence to write, or a kind of ambivalence, or even a kind of shame that, gosh, who am I to give voice to my own experience? So if someone's had that kind of experience anyway, what encouragement might you have for them?
I think, as I said earlier, that everybody has creativity within them. In the liturgy, you'll hear the word sin from time to time, and sin sounds so antiquated, I feel now. Like, what does it mean to people? What does it mean to a teenager in my parish that hears the words? Like, do they even relate to that word? And I think the greatest sin now in 2025 in my head is perfectionism, and it stops us from doing so much. Like, I can't write because it won't be perfect or something, or won't be great, or who am I? But it's important to get back to that childlike state. Now, okay, so the stakes are high for me with writing, and I am kind of a perfectionist when it comes to the writing, and I'm slow, and I don't like stuff that I don't think is any good, and my standards are really high, and I'm very hard on what I produce. That's me. I'm not telling everybody on this who's listening to this, or whoever listens to this, that they have to be like that, and it does give me great pleasure, and I don't even know where the ambition comes for them to be like that, but I just want that. But I have another art form that I've developed through my life, which is painting and watercolors, because I've moved around so much and I haven't really had a home in one place for very long in a traditional sense. And so I began painting early on, and in my life now as a rector, when I get stressed out or something's bothering me, I try to paint. And because with the paintings, I don't need to be the next Picasso, or I don't need to. I don't have those pressures, or who am I to? And they're just for me. Actually, people like them, and they made a book out of them, and okay, but I'm just having fun. And I think everybody needs that. And if you want to write, and just start that way. And if you want to take it seriously, then, there's so many avenues, places that I've taught, like the Bennington Low Residency MFA, where I just taught. There's great resources if you're listening to this and you have gone to divinity school and you want to be a writer and you have the resources, a place like that is just tremendous to encourage you. I didn't go to any of those places, but there's all kinds of ways to pursue that art that I have pursued on my own. There's a lot of help out there to do it, and come on aboard.
Would you kindly read us maybe one more poem?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What else have you
I
brought
wasn't
for us?
planning to do that, but yes, I can. I'll read you this one. So a big part of my priestly life has been taken up with San Pedro Sula in Honduras, which is in Central America. I go there every year. I'm on the board of this home for girls, rescued girls who don't have parents. And we raise them up. We give them an education. They're watched around the clock behind a 10-foot wall with armed guards. It's not the safest place in the world, but it's an oasis. And girls have become dentists, lawyers, and it's very inspirational to me, and I believe in it. So I wrote this poem called Honduran Pantoum, which I just sent to the New Yorker. And a pantoum is this kind of old form of poetry from Malaysia, and it has repeating lines. And I don't follow the rules exactly. Reggaeton is a kind of like music that's really loud that the girls love that I learned how to dance to. Honduran Pantoum. Honduras is to heat as fire is to Moses. Black crows repeat psalms of adoption. Honduras is to heat as fire is to Moses. Many try to fix Honduras like Moses. At Our Little Roses, there's no adoption. The girls went right into sex trafficking. 10 new girls have come from Olancha. At Our Little Roses, there's no adoption. One, so nearsighted, she'd never seen the girls go right into sex trafficking, or the face of a priest or her own father. Little nearsighted girl, you could not see until we gave you bright new red glasses to see my face. I put on glasses and look like my father. Columbus came here and he didn't come back. We gave the girl red glasses and she danced to reggaeton. I put on my glasses. She calls me her father. My father adopted my baby brother. I put on my glasses. She calls me her father. Today, 10 baby girls came from Olancha. Now that I'm a priest, they call me father. The sun pounds in the sky like reggaeton. The girls dance and adopt me. Oh, Columbus, heat is a psalm like reggaeton that repeats with crows that sing like Moses, that traffic in adoption, as the priest with glasses who became a father promised to come back and dance with the girls of Our Little Roses.
Father Spencer Reece, thank you for all your work. Our world needs poetry more than ever. Thank you for giving your life to it.
You're welcome. Thanks for taking the time to talk to me.
Thank you for joining us today on the Leader's Way podcast, a show for people who are not ready to give up on the world. We hope you found the episode expansive and nourishing. If you enjoyed the episode, please be sure to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite platform. Your support helps us to continue bringing you sacred conversations with luminaries, scholars, and spiritual leaders who are dedicated to transforming our world. For more information about our guests and to catch up on past episodes, visit our website at berkeleydivinity.yale.edu. Follow the show on Instagram at theleadersway.podcast to stay updated on future episodes and events. Until next time, I'm Dr. Brandon Nappi, walking with you as you lead with courage, wisdom, and compassion.